Hi, everyone, and welcome to a new session with Code with Sally. Today is session number 7 in our series of Cloud Code with Bill. Bill, I'm super excited for today's session. I saw your LinkedIn post with the sample video, the trailer for what we will be covering and how we can do such videos using the tools and functionality and technology you'll be sharing today. So I was excited for the session before seeing the video, but after seeing the video, I feel like I can't wait for you to start. So I don't want to take so much of your time, to be honest. But a quick introduction for anyone who doesn't know Bill. Bill is a Salesforce Hall of Fame MVP, and he's a Golden Hoodie and co-founder of Resource Hero. And he has been very generous with his time. Today is session number 7, and thankfully we'll keep going until Bill tell me enough. But we'll never have enough of your knowledge and curiosity to ask you questions. So thank you so much, Bill, for your time. And for anyone who's just joined, please keep the questions coming, either by sending them to me one-to-one in the chat or the public chat. And I will organize all the questions for you, Bill. And whenever you have a minute or a good stop where we can cover questions, let me know and we'll go through them. And the session will be recorded, so everyone, you can follow along. And if you want to rewatch it, we'll publish it on YouTube. With that, I will hand it over to you, Bill. And thank you so much. And can't wait to learn from you.
All right. Well, I appreciate you having me once again. Um, I'm going to share my screen, and I think we will just jump right into the topic of the day. Um, so you should be able to see my screen.
Yes, all good now.
Okay. So for today's session, what we're going to be covering is, using Claude Code to essentially automate the creation of support videos or any kind of video for that matter. And the main tools that we're going to be using are going to be Claude, obviously, Playwright, which we covered in one of the previous sessions, and then a new tool that we haven't spoken about yet called HyperFrames. All right. Now, two kind of disclaimers that I seem to throw out in every one of these sessions, but I'll do it again here as well. One is that this is not my normal operating environment. Usually I'm working out of Linux, but I present in Windows just because it just seems to work better with Zoom, and I don't want my screen to crash and all that kind of nonsense. So bear with me as I fumble around and click and hit the wrong key combinations that don't work in Windows and open random things. So bear with me there. The second thing is that I think it's important to know that these topics that we cover, specifically this one, this is one that I use every single week. Trying to enhance our support videos on the Resource Hero website, or just trying to, when I work with a client and we do custom services for them, in addition to giving them handoff documentation, it's great to give them a video that kind of walks them through the actual click paths and, documents, how they should be using a new feature that I've given them. So this is definitely one that I use all the time. But I should also point out that I'm not an expert on any of these items. So, I use Claude every day. Playwright and HyperFrames I use a couple times a week, but definitely not an expert. So what I'm going to share today is basically how I'm using these tools, my understanding of the tools. But if there's any kind of questions that come up that get a little bit, into the more technical details or more detailed that I don't know, we'll do our best to try and answer those questions either during the call, through the documentation, or we can just follow up. So definitely ask the questions, but just know I'm going to do my best to answer them. But I might not know the answer, and that's kind of it's kind of the way things are now. It's hard to know, everything that we all use every day. All right. So our goal of today, we are going to start with a completely empty Claude directory and move through the process of setting up our tools. So Claude Code is already set up. Playwright and HyperFrames are the two key pieces of functionality that we're going to be configuring. Then we are going to start with the most basic of example, the presentation equivalent of a hello world type presentation, right? So we're going to just try to, create something basic. We'll look to see what that basic video looks like in HyperFrames and, the different artifacts that it creates. Then from there, we'll try to, raise it up a little bit. We'll actually try to create kind of a Salesforce support video connecting to an actual Salesforce word, capturing screenshots and building kind of a support video. One thing I wanted to point out here, so you might ask yourself, well, this is all cool, like using Claude to capture, screens in Salesforce and recording a voiceover, but why can't I just start a Zoom call, record the Zoom video, and click through it myself, talk over it myself, and just give that to my client. Well, what it really comes down to is that if you have to do that once, maybe that is the fastest way to do it. But what if you had to do it a second time or a third time or a fourth time? So the example that I like to think about here is that Resource Hero, my application, there's a lot of times we create a support video and it has, we're talking about some feature and, we're navigating through screens. Well, over time, maybe some of those screens start to look a little bit different. Maybe buttons have moved in different places. Maybe the colors have changed. Maybe just the style is kind of, evolved over time. So when that happens, those videos start to become out of date. So using a tool chain like this, where we have Claude driving Playwright and HyperFrames creating our animation, it's not the first time that you really get the savings. It's the second, third, fourth, and fifth time that you need to re-record that same video with the same kind of logic going through it, but maybe with slightly different screens. So instead of you having to redo it manually every single time, you can do it once, automate the process once with Claude, and then you can run it any number of times that you might have to do after that, as the screens change or Salesforce comes out with a new UI after Lightning. I don't know, but this would help you re-record all these. Now, like I said, Playwright is one that we had covered in a previous session. Playwright is essentially a command line interface that lets or enables your AI agents to open a browser and interact with the different web pages that are in there. Now, in preparation for this session, I always kind of figure out what's the best way to present Claude Code. Should I be using the Claude desktop app? Should I be using through the terminal? So I actually went down the path of opening up the Claude desktop app, which I don't use a lot. But as I was going through and trying to connect Playwright and test everything out, there was a little pop-up that came up that says Claude has direct access to the browser now. You should use this tool and it can take screenshots and do all this kind of stuff for you. So I started to kind of question, well, why would I even need Playwright then if Claude can just do it directly? And the answer to that is that Playwright CLI, this tool that has the ability to open up a browser, take screenshots, record video, all this kind of stuff, not only does it work within Claude, but it's going to work in any of your AI agents, right? So if you decide to create a process and a skill that's based on Playwright and HyperFrames, and today you're using Claude Code, but maybe your company next week says, you know what, we can't use Claude Code, it's too expensive. We're going to go to use Gemini, we're going to use ChatGPT or Codex. The skills that you create with Playwright CLI will just work in any agent that you decide to leverage, whether or not that they have some baked in, built in browser control mechanism. So even though Claude has this capability kind of built into the tool now, Playwright, I think, is still the right choice just because it'll work across all those different agents. And not only that, but also from a browser perspective, right? Believe it or not, I guess there's still companies out there that use Edge as their primary browser. I'm going to use Edge as my primary browser today. But if you don't want to use Chrome or you don't want to use Firefox or you wanted to use Edge, whatever it is, this tool will work across all those browsers. So again, I think this is the right tool for the job. Now, HyperFrames. So what is HyperFrames? Okay, so basically the simplest way to explain this would be that first sentence right there. It's an open source framework that lets you turn HTML into a video, right? And when you install, quote unquote, HyperFrames, basically what we're doing is we're installing the tools, but also then the skills that you can plug your agents into so that it knows how to build these things out. Now, not to get into the details here, but essentially as we build a video, we're not really building video. We don't have like a video file. We don't have like a screen recorder or anything like that going. Essentially, what we're doing is we're telling Claude what we want to put into the video, where we want a mouse cursor to move, what animations that we want. And it's basically building the equivalent of that in HTML, CSS, and it uses JavaScript to kind of do some of the movements. And then once we have a scene or we have an entire video that we think looks good, then we take that HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, we pass it through a rendering engine, and it basically creates the video for us from that. So the nice thing about this is that when you create this this video, all the details about the animations and everything else, it's all just normal web development stuff that you could easily check into like a Git repo and manage changes over times and things like that. But again, we'll get into specific examples here in a few minutes. Now, let's see. So how, again, we'll cover this in detail, but essentially this is what I was talking about, where when we start to build out the project, you're going to see a bunch of HTML files, JSON, some markdown files as far as like scripts and briefings and things like that. But again, we'll get into that as we go through our example. All right. Yeah, and again, we'll see some of this as we start to build out our first test video here. But basically, what you'll see is within the HTML source, you'll see a bunch of these things here where not only do we have an ID, that's kind of standard, but we'll also have these data tags here, which indicate, at what time stamp does this image display on the screen? How long should it stay on the screen? And in some cases, you'll see like animation, where should it go? What should it do? All those types of things. But again, all that is going to be baked into standard HTML tags within the components themselves. All right. Now, HyperFrames, once we actually go through the install, which we're going to do together and again, a blank project here in a moment, it's going to give you a bunch of different skills, right? It's going to give you things like skills that are called like PR to video, which are specific to taking like a GitHub PR that you've created and creating an explainer video about it. You can put videos about a new feature, and it can create like a faceless explainer video or Figma. It does all these different things, but the important thing to know is you don't have to know any of that, right? And the main entry point whenever you're working with hyperframes is going to be just a straight up hyperframe skill, and that skill is knowledgeable enough. It knows how to interpret your request to figure out which one of these that it should drive behind the scenes. Right. So know that they're there. In some cases, you could call them directly for more advanced use cases, but most of the time, you're just going to go through this hyperframe skill that we're going to install and set up here in a moment. All right. So yeah, I think we're just going to jump right into the demo, and this might be just a good spot to just pause for a moment. Any questions before we jump right in here?
And there was a question asking about the syntax and if they need to know all those HTML or not, but I think you
No.
answered when you were explaining.
Yeah, I think the way that I would put this is that if you are already familiar with web development stuff, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, it will definitely help you. I mean, you can definitely tweak these things manually. Again, it's all code, it's all within the file, so you can manage them manually if you wanted to, but you don't have to. You could do this 100% through the Claude, interface and just tell Claude what you want to do. um, Interacting with, like, if you want to explain like minor tweaks and where you want stuff to show up. One of the things, and again, we'll get into this in a minute here, but one of the things that I found out or I find really helpful is just taking a screenshot, marking it up with circles and arrows and boxes, throwing that in the Claude and saying, hey, look at what I highlighted here. I wanted to move where the arrow is, that kind of stuff. So yeah, knowing the code would definitely can't hurt you, but it's definitely not a requirement for sure.
And there is a question. They are wondering if it's too hard to learn like Playwright and HyperFrame, or you find that it's an easy tool, like with just some practice, they can start using it efficiently.
You don't need to know either of those tools except for their names.
No, okay.
Because, like I said, you can basically go from nothing to a full animated support video or a hype video uh, set to some metal song just by using prompts. You don't have to know a single thing about those tools except that they exist and what they do, and then Claude can kind of do the rest for you.
And the last question, sorry, Bill, we have does you can include some extra videos as well as addition within your videos, like embed other videos you have already and add on top of it,
Yeah.
or it just screenshots?
Yeah, absolutely. You can use videos embedded within these animated videos that you're creating. Absolutely.
That's great. Okay. And the last question, and I answered it in the chat, but just to confirm, we have a question how to install HyperFrame and is there any setup file for HyperFrame? I think we'll be doing this together right now, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good segue to get right into what we're going to be doing here. All
That's
right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump over into this browser tab. This is the Playwright one that we walked through a couple of sessions ago. But if you just scroll down here, you'll see bottom line, you get to this statement right here. All right. And this is what you need to run in order to install the Playwright CLI. So I'm just going to copy that. Let's jump into our VS Code, and I'm going to open up my terminal, and I'm going to paste it in here. All right. So when I run that, I think it probably is already installed here, but I'm going to run it anyway. Okay. So it says it's changed 3 packages, but if we jump back here, it gives us a nice way to tell if it actually worked. So I'm going to copy that, paste that in here, and there you go. So we know that Playwright has been installed. Again, just one command to install Playwright.
And quick
Now,
question, sorry, Bill, to
yeah,
stop you. The folder or the what you open here in the Claude, is it the blank folder you just created, or a folder, or did you create it and did initialize Claude inside it? Like,
yeah, I appreciate Jason that because I meant to mention that, but I didn't. So thank you for calling me out on that. So this folder that we have here, the top level folder is just session '07. And if you do any kind of development work within Salesforce, you're probably going to recognize this as just the basic template that gets created when you create a new SF project using that SF project generate command. So this is just a blank project. You'll see there's a bunch of folders in here, but there's nothing in here, just a blank Salesforce project. In addition to that, there's a few things that I added. Obviously, the slides that I was presenting through Edge live here. There's some cheats that I have here with some of the prompts that I'm going to be entering, just so that you don't have to all watch me fumble through my keyboard. And that's pretty much it. And I'm sorry, the only other thing was this here. When we talk about creating videos and making sure that they maintain a consistent look and feel over time. If you're creating support videos, about a bunch of different interfaces in your application, making sure that they all look consistent is a great idea. So I threw in my resource hero brand folder that's got like all of our icons and our color schemes and all that kind of stuff, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But to answer your question, this is a quote unquote empty folder that has nothing pre-created in it except for just that scaffolded standard Salesforce project directory that we have here.
okay, great, thank you.
And that's it. Yeah, and I haven't even done like any Claude init or any of that kind of stuff. It's literally nothing in here except that just basic folder. And I was going to say I was going to actually start with an empty folder where we can just start this HyperFrames project outside of like a Salesforce project. The only downside to that is some of the skills and things that we're going to install, they get installed at the project level. So I don't want to have to go through the install twice, like every time we create a new folder. So I figured we just do everything within this one directory, and that way we don't have to go through the steps multiple times. All right.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay, so Playwright, it's installed, it's working. We just ran the help command, and we can confirm that it came back without any kind of errors. So that's good. We don't need to know any of this stuff or any specific commands. We just need to know that it's installed and it's working. So that's good to go. Now, the second tool that we said that we were going to install was going to be HyperFrames. Now, if you didn't know where to go, if you just went into a browser and typed in HyperFrames, what you're looking for is right here, this heygen.com. Okay, and if you click on that, it's going to take you to this page with an animation that, for whatever reason, doesn't really work that great on my browser. But you'll see here, you have this get started, and it's just a link that's going to install the skills that you need to use HyperFrames. So I'm just going to copy that guy, and then I'm going to click on get started so that that animation doesn't drag my computer down. But I'm going to go back here to our terminal. I'm going to paste that command in. And basically, if we just, before I run this, we just take a look at this, we're going to run npx skills add. It's going to add all the heygen / hyperframe skills. And it's got this full depth tag here, which we'll see what that means here when we click enter. So this is actually going to run you through kind of like a quick wizard to ask you exactly what skills you want to install and where you want to install them. All right, so it's cloning a GitHub repo, and eventually it'll take us into the step where it'll ask us what we want to install. Okay, here we go. So it's saying, do we want to like pick and choose specific skills, or in most cases, I would just suggest clicking select all. Now, why you might not want to do that, like if you don't use Figma, maybe you just want to uncheck that one. If you're like really trying to pinch on your storage or something like that, you don't want that a couple extra markdown files, you could do that. But for simplicity, we'll do select all, hit enter. Now you see that we're down here, and it's asking us, do we want to install this for any other agents? And Claude, we're all familiar with Claude skills. They get installed into a .claude/skills directory. But if you're using any other kind of agents like Astrobot, AiderDesk, which I've never even heard of some of these, or Bob, I really want to use Bob now that I've seen it. But yeah, we don't need any of that. So we're just going to select our Claude code, hit enter. And now it's going to ask us at what level do we want to install this. Now, this is one that you definitely want to take a pause on, right? So it depends on really how you structure your projects on your local machine, right? So in my scenario, like when I do this day to day, I have a single directory that I've created called marketing, and I install all of my Claude marketing skills into that one project directory. And whenever I want to do any kind of marketing project related work, that's where I start Claude from, and it has all the marketing skills in that one place. And all the project files just get stored in like a projects directory somewhere else that I point to, right? So that way I can maintain one set of tools, one upgrade to all those tools. They all exist in one place, and that's, that works for me. Now, if you didn't want to deal with that, if you just wanted to say, I don't care where I am on my computer, I just want these skills to be available because I might create animations and, work stuff. I might do personal projects. I might do stuff related to my hobby, whatever it is. So maybe the easiest thing in that case would be just to add it globally. And then no matter where you are, when you run Claude on your machine, those skills would be available, right? For the purposes of this, we're going to install it at the project level. All right, so that way it'll just drop into this project folder that we have here. So I'll click enter. All right, now this is where it's going to ask you, do you want to copy all the agents into this folder, or do you want to have them symlinked from like a global repo? Again, not an expert on everything. I'm just going to go with the recommended symlink approach. That seems to have worked in everything I've done thus far. And I'm thinking that it'll probably be faster because a lot of that might be already on my computer, but let's just see here. Now it's going to ask you about security. Install any tool from the internet at your own risk, obviously, right? Because these things could contain who knows what kind of scripts and instructions and everything else that it might install. You can see, kind of tries to give you an idea of the level of, danger to install this, or, can it modify things on your computer? So read through it, consult the documentation and your own conscience. And when you're happy with that, then you can click proceed with installation, right? So we're going to install.
I'm glad you
And
mentioned that because we had a question saying how secure these tools are given that they are working with corporate data. So I believe
yeah,
we cannot recommend it or not. It's something everyone needs to go through it and decide.
yeah, this is probably I don't think this is probably the right way to think about this, but I'll tell you the way that I kind of think about this, right? I am very wary about installing any kind of Claude uh, plugins or skills that, for example, don't come from the Claude marketplace itself, right? But if it comes from the Claude marketplace, like the Anthropic marketplace, generally speaking, I feel like those have been vetted to some extent and that they would be safe. So I don't really think too much about those. Um, that said, when somebody points me to like a GitHub repo, or just some random dude that I've never heard about, has this trending tool that's available on GitHub, those are the ones that I might take a little bit more time to kind of click through, parse through, clone the repo, kind of look through it on my, on my local machine just to make sure that nothing looks nefarious before I would, try to plug in an agent to it. But it's very rare that I get some just random thing off of GitHub. Now, that being said, this is where it's a little bit different. Where HeyGen, or Playwright, right? These are very well known tools. There's a lot of people that are using these. Playwright, for example, has been, was created by Microsoft. I don't know if I should say that I would trust it more because it's from Microsoft, but you know what I mean? Like it's a tool that a lot of people are using, a lot of people have eyes on. Both of them are open source. So, you kind of think that because a lot of people are using them, they've been around for a little bit, open source, you would hope to think that if there was something nefarious in there, that, somebody would have caught it by now. But all that being said, no matter what source it comes from, there is a risk that these tools, even working as designed, might make changes to your machine, and you should just, give that some thought. Like, if you give it access to this directory and it blows away some work that you did and that you didn't back up, that's kind of on you, right? So that's always a risk of using any of these kind of tools. But yeah, it's always good to kind of take a beat just to think about, what is it that I'm installing? Do I trust the person that it came from or the company that it came from? And if trust isn't a binary thing, what level of trust do I have? Maybe from a scale of 0 to 100, and then just make your decision from there. And of course, if you're creating some kind of documentation about some proprietary information or personal information, or something that's confidential for a client, then you really want to give it some thought. Like, do you really want to send that through some tool that you're not 100% sure that it's safe? So yeah, I think that's just the kind of the standard these days of thinking through what tools that we're using. So
Thank you so much, Will.
yeah. All right. Now for HyperFrames, it looks like it installed our skills. So we can see that we now have this .agents directory and .claude. And if we look in the .claude, you can see that it added a skills directory, and we can see all the different skills that it's added, including, we talked about like the video, talking head recuts and all that kind of stuff. But again, the one that we really care about is this HyperFrames. That's the one that we're actually going to engage with as part of our work that we're going to do. Now, just like we do with Playwright, it's always good to kind of run a quick test just to make sure that HyperFrames installed correctly. So in this case, I think the test here is npx HyperFrames dash help. So if we run that, we can see there it goes. So HyperFrames is installed and it's working, and we are good to go. All right. So we are about to jump into creating our first example of a video created with HyperFrames. But before I do that, any questions on the installation? Anything else?
Yeah, we have two questions. One of them is if someone already installed Playwright when they were following our previous session, do they still need to reinstall it again with a new project or a new directory?
You shouldn't have to. It really depends on how you did the installation. The default installation, if I jump to, there you go, Playwright. The default installation you see here where we have npm install has that -g option there, which means that it's going to install globally. So if you followed that step right there and install globally, you shouldn't have to reinstall it. That being said, if you weren't sure or you just ran that forgetting that you had already done it 2 weeks ago, that's not going to have any kind of negative consequences. Well, I mean, we can get into package managers and all that stuff, but yeah, just running it again is not going to hurt anything for the most part. So yeah, I would just, if you're not sure, just run it again, and it will just say no packages to update, or it'll say 2 packages to update if it had some kind of upgrade. But otherwise, just run it again.
Okay. And the other question we got as well, what is the .agents folder that appeared after installing HyperFrame?
Yeah. Call back to when I said I'm not an expert on everything, but I'll try to answer this the best I can. Basically, I think the standard where everybody's kind of going is that everybody knows that we have Claude, we have Codex, we have, all these different agents that we're running on our machines now. If every single time you wanted to create a skill, if you wanted to use it between different, agent, Claude or ChatGPT, whatever it is, if you had to create a separate directory for each one of them and recreate the skills in each one of them, or create it one time and then do symlinks to all these other directories, that would be a headache. It would just be a lot to manage. So I think that the direction that we're going is that we're trying to standardize on this .agents directory where everybody can point to it. All the different agents you have points to that one place. I think Claude is still using its .claude. I don't know if it'll work directly with .agents if .claude didn't exist already. But that's basically what it is. It's for the purposes of this conversation, it's the same as the .claude directory. It's just the more standardized one that I think everybody's trying to go. That's like, we don't have to all recreate our own thing every time.
Thank you so much, Bill.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we're going to jump into it. All right. Now I mentioned that I was going to cheat. So I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to open up this document here, and I'm going to copy this first prompt here. Let's copy that. And then I'm going to open up a new Claude session. I had one open. I closed it, you notice, because we installed some new skills, and I don't want to get into that, trying to figure out if we need to refresh our plugins or all that nonsense. So here we are with a fresh session. I'm going to paste in my prompt. And before I hit enter, let's actually just take a look at what this says. All right. So I would like to create a new video using HyperFrames. And again, that's the key one that we want to make sure that we put in there so that, that's our entry into HyperFrames. For the purpose of learning the tool. Let's start simple with a single scene that has a blue sky background and a red circle on the left that will move all the way to the right over the span of 5 seconds. We can call this demonstration video simple circle. Okay. So nothing too crazy, just text, no technical detail baked in there or anything. Just we want to have a background in the circle that moves. All right. So I'm going to hit enter there.
And can we zoom in a little bit, Bill,
Yeah,
if
let's
possible?
see.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Let's let that go. All right, so let's kind of see how this is going here. So first thing, okay, so it loaded the HyperFrame skill. It's reading, through some of the documentation of those skills. It's reading the motion graphics one because we said we want to do some movement. And now it is scheming. So we'll give this a second. And I'm actually going to expand this again, and we'll see as it starts creating files, we'll see them kind of pop over here on the left. But like a lot of times when you work with these AI tools, you're kind of sitting there just watching and waiting. So,
And
yeah.
did we create the scripts folder ourselves or got created when we installed HyperFrame? the script?
No, I think I think this one here. This is actually the
Oh,
basic
okay. So
Salesforce one that gets
yeah.
scaffolded, yeah, with the Salesforce project.
So does it create a specific folder for the hyperframe outputs or with every
Yep.
request, or it will be in like the top layer?
Yeah. So, and I was about to say non-deterministic, so we don't know what we're going to happen here, but and every time and in this time as well, you can see over here that when we asked it to create a video, it's going to create a videos subdirectory. So if we expand that, you can now see that it created that scaffold there for this specific video that we asked it to create under that simple circle
Mm.
directory there. So yeah, that's what it creates, and you can see it's creating all the different files. And once this finishes, before we actually look at this, um, we'll take a look at each of these files and what's in there, so we can kind of understand what it does. All right, now here's the other thing that I haven't quite figured out yet. You notice all these command prompt windows that are popping up, right? So as HyperFrames is doing its work, it's actually running script commands that, for whatever reason, on Windows, it just opens up a whole bunch of like PowerShell screens or command prompt screens. And then eventually they all go away. Sometimes half of them go away and I have to manually take care of the other ones, but I haven't figured that part out. But if you see that, just know that that's kind of normal. And if I come up with a solution, I'll let you know, but it's running all of its hyperframe stuff. And eventually, like I said, these will all go away. All right. So there we go. So it creates our contact sheet. Composition looks correct. Okay. So it basically it did what we asked it to do. And now it's asking us, do we want to go right into rendering a video file, this MP4 file, or do we want to launch a preview? So what we want to do is we actually want to launch a preview because a preview, it's going to let us watch the video, but it's going to put it in a way that it's actually editable. We can start making tweaks without it going through that kind of time intensive rendering process. All right, so I'm going to select open the preview first. And what this should do, it should actually open up a preview in our browser. It opens up like a local server on the local host, and then we could open up and actually see our video. So it checks to see if that server's running. It was not running, so it's actually going to start it, and that's what we see here. So any moment now, it'll open up the browser, and here you go. So it's in this HyperFrames Preview Studio. We'll give it a second, and there we go. So we are in the preview. Um, Now, again, before we look at the code, I'll just show you what this looks like. So if I were to click play on the preview, there we go. So we have a sky blue background, we have a red circle, and when we click play over the span of 5 seconds, it moves from the left to the right. Okay, so pretty basic. And if we jump into VS Code and we actually take a look at what it created here, the key item that we actually care about, the one that actually contains the details, is this index.html file. Okay, now what you're going to notice here, kind of very standard to an HTML file, we're going to have in the header, the head section, we have our styles. So this, defines things like the body, the circle that we created, what the sky colors are, all that kind of stuff. And in the body, when we get down here, this is where all the components are going to live that are part of our scene, right? So we can see if we just look at the IDs, we have this root element here, and within that we have the sky, and of course it's going to have our class that points it to, or I'm sorry, it actually does it based on the ID for the style. So we have the sky ID and we have the circle ID, and if we scroll over a little bit, you can see the duration of how long that those elements are going to be on the screen. And then it's got that data track index. We have index 1 and index 2. All right, now, and then if we look at our JavaScript, you can see this is where it's actually doing, the animation. So in this case, and again, you don't have to know this code to work with this. I just want to go through it in a little bit of detail just so you have an idea. But you can see this T1, it's going to take our circle and it's mentioning it by ID. That's where that little hashtag there is. So take our circle and it's going to go from two. So it's going to go from position 0 to position whatever that is. I think it's trying to figure out the resolution minus, some borders and things like that. But basically, it's going to go from to that position to this position over the span of 5 seconds, and yeah, that's what it does. Now, just to see what happens if we added something a little bit more complicated, right? So right now it's just that circle that's moving. Well, let's go back into our Claude and let's just say this looks great, and you always got to say nice things to the bots so they don't murder you in the future. So this looks great. Now let's make the circle hold position for 2 seconds, then move back. back to the left. Okay. So basically what I want to see here is that, or what I want to demonstrate here is that when we have still within one scene, we have something moving to one location, doing something else and moving to the left. I just want to show you what that looks like from the code perspective. And then we'll go from there. So Claude will think here, and you can see it's making some updates, and it'll run the check. And when you see this where it says it's running the checks, I do want to take a minute just to show you what that is after we get our 400 command prompt windows popping up here. So we'll let those all go. And then I do want to show you what that piece is where it says it's running the checks on the composition. All right. So we got another 15 command prompts. It's actually, I'm very excited because I guess whatever I did to try to fix this, maybe it worked because they still pop up, but now they at least disappear. Before they were all staying up. And when I would look at, all the different screens I had open, I had like 50 of those things all open. All right, there we go. So it looks like it finished. Before we look at it, let's just take a look here. All right, let's see. So here's our circle. And again, we have it going from to 0 to, whatever that it took that out and it factored that out. So it's going from the start to the end. Then we have the circle, looks like it is doing the same thing. I guess that's the part where, okay, so we don't have to wait. It's just saying that at 7, that's when it's going to start moving back to the left. All right, so let's just see what this looks like. We go back into here. Let's bring this back to the start and see what happens. So you can see the first 5 seconds, it's going over to the right. It's waiting the 2 seconds, as you can see, and now it's going to go back to the left. Okay. So again, nothing crazy. It's basically just telling Claude what you want to animate and letting it kind of do its thing. So I mentioned that Claude, every time you make a change, it does some type of verification to make sure that it was successful. And I believe if you look here in the snapshots directory, you can actually kind of see what it's doing there. So it'll actually take snapshots at different moments in time in the video that it creates, and it validates that what you expected or where that thing expected to be is actually where it is. So it'll create the individual screenshots of the video for it to use for the validation. And then just to make your life easy, it creates this contact sheet, which basically takes all the shots and put them on a single view where you can kind of validate stuff. So again, if you wanted to kind of just validate that it's doing generally what you wanted it to do without having to open up the preview server or having to go in the browser and refreshing and all that kind of stuff, you can just start here and kind of just look at the different timestamps and see where things are. All right. So any questions there as far as like just the basics before we get into the next step?
Yeah, we have two of them, please. So the first one, someone is asking, when you open the preview, there is a HyperFrames to do. Do we ever use it to edit the videos we generate or the preview, or do you usually refer to Claude to do the changes?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll give you a couple different answers. One, do I ever use the preview window? And I'll actually, let me just jump over here so we can kind of talk through this, right? You notice as I click on any element here, it actually brings up the code, which is fully editable. I can make changes right here. So could you make edits and make changes to timing and durations and drag stuff around here? Yes, you absolutely could. Are there situations where, I said that I wanted the circle to be red, but I really meant it to be blue? And I go into Claude and say, can you actually make the circle blue? Yes, I do that. But really, I could have just came in here and just changed the color from red to blue directly in the code. So it's really personal preference. You can do a mix and match. You can use Claude to prompt things and have it make the updates for you. Or if you're comfortable with the code and you want to just, go in here and make changes and update timings and all that kind of stuff, you can absolutely do it through here. Or you could do it through, the file directly through VS Code. Personal preference, 100%.
And when we update the file in the HyperFrame Studio, it's updating the same HTML file, I assume, right? Like it's not a different copy or a different temporary file.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would give you maybe an answer, but let's just test it out here. So if I just change this to green, and I can't do hashtag green, I'll do green directly and save the file. If they're the same thing and they're not some kind of like cached copy, the theory would be as if I go back here and play this. There you go. So it's already updated. You see it turn to green. Now let's try it the other way here. Now that is interesting because we changed it to green. It's showing green, but when I look here, maybe this is kind of a cached copy. So because it's still showing the old color value. So if I were to refresh this, I'm assuming that clicking here, okay, now we can see the green. And if I were to change that to purple, I don't know if I need to save. Let's just play. Okay, so that worked. And now if we go back to VS Code, you can see that it did in fact save. Yeah. So just one kind of gotcha to be aware of that if you do make changes here, and then you go into the preview and just click play, it'll show the changes, but the code, it looks like it kind of caches that part of it. So if you're making changes here, you might have to refresh the page to see that updated code in the browser.
Okay, great. And we have another question. If we have a video already, can we ask Claude Code to edit it through HyperFrame?
So what's interesting, that's a great question. What's very interesting, if we go back to our slides, I don't know if I actually listed it here, but it's definitely on the HyperFrames. And I won't go into this in detail, but let me at least just see if I can pull this up just so you can reference it. But there is a special. Okay, so I won't waste time looking confused in the camera as I try to parse through it. But yeah, there is a skill that is part of HyperFrames that allows you to take an existing video, pass it through the skill. It'll do all the analysis that it has to do, and it will recreate that for you in the format of HyperFrames where you have your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So not to say that you could just drop something in there and just start editing it, but you can take an existing video and it will essentially convert it into something that you can then start editing and building from. Um, I've never tried that, but that is definitely one of the skills that's part of that skill catalog that you install.
Thank you so much, Bill.
Okay. All right. So let's jump back here. Now, again, I'm going to cheat a little bit and let's just see. Oh, you know what? Let's not cheat. Let's actually just go back into Claude. Now, we have our video where just something moves left and right. Now, if this was a support video, you could just show it. But what would really help is if you had some kind of captions where it was explaining what's happening on the screen. All right. So let's actually just give that a whirl. So let's go into let's actually do our cheat sheet. So let's grab, we already did that. Okay. So let's do this right here. So I'm going to copy this, go over to Claude. So let's add a captions bar at the bottom that is explaining what's happening on the screen, at each step. All right, so let's do that. So again, this is very simple. We're moving circles around, but just try to keep in mind, like if you were creating a real support video, what are all the different things that you would want to be included in that? So again, as you're demonstrating something on the screen, we would want to have some kind of, caption that explains, click on this, or this is what's happening here. So that's the piece that we're building out right now.
That's amazing, and I think it would save a lot of time if you're trying to document changes and document functionality that you're working with, and without you recording and putting and specifying the text, if Claude will do it for us, so that means we can regenerate the video again with the recent updates we did without worrying about explaining and being prepared on what to say.
Yeah, now we'll go into this. There's a slide at the very end that I wanted to cover where I kind of detail a little bit more about how I use this to create my support videos. But basically, the way my workflow is, I actually take the time to create the support page first. So I go through explaining what the feature is, all the steps you have to click, like the click paths and all this stuff, like normal support documentation. And then instead of me coming into Claude and explaining what I wanted to create as a video, I point it to that support page and say, look at this support post. This is what we're going to work with. Use that to come up with, the storyboard, the talk track, and everything else. So it does a really good job of doing the first pass before I even get into having to do the tweaks and things like that. Yeah, we'll jump to that in a minute here. All right, so looks like it's finished. Now, again, let's just see what it came up with, and then we can dig into the actual code changes. All right, so circle moves from left to right over 5 seconds. Cool. Circle holds its position for 2. Circle moves back to the left over 5 seconds. I mean, that's pretty good. All right. So again, that's a very simple example, but it added our caption bar, and it just knew to change the color to make it kind of stand out, which is pretty cool. It interpreted what was happening in the scene, and it actually came up. You notice I didn't say type exactly these captions, it figured that out for us. With that, that's kind of what we expect from these AI tools. But I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so let's jump back. Let's see. All right, so this is where we get into some kind of cool stuff here. All right. So it's great that it has captions on the bottom, but that's not very engaging, right? So it would be really cool if we can actually have the thing just talk for us as well. All right. So I'm just going to give it that. I'm not going to tell it where to find a voice, what to do, what, you know, male or female or anything like that. I just want to say we had a basic voiceover track and we'll let it go. Right. Now, as part of the HyperFrames install, it actually comes with some basic voices that you could use. Once you hear them, if you listen to some of the examples, if you're the kind of person that does the TikTok thing, you might recognize a lot of these voices because I think it's what a lot of these people use when they create theirs. So yeah, this is what it is. I don't actually know how to pronounce that word, but Kokoro, I don't know. But that's the one that we're going to use. There are other places that you can get voices, and we'll talk through some of those in a bit. Like my support videos or the video that we created, as in advance of this, the Sally video, they'll actually use voices from 11 Labs, which again we'll talk about towards the end. But for general support videos where you don't want to spend any kind of money, you just want to basically get something that'll work, go with that. And then, if you find the need to do something more later, you can do that. But we'll just say use Kokoro, and let's see what happens here. So it's got 3 lines that it's going to try to voice over. Now, here's the part I actually don't know when I shared my screen if I actually selected the option for audio to go through. So I guess we'll see if that works or not. Now I'm kind of wondering, like, can you guys hear that or no?
And no.
Okay. So while Claude is thinking, maybe what I can do, I don't know if I can turn that on or if I have to stop sharing in the reshare. Oh, here we go. Share computer sound. I guess stereo. Yeah, definitely high fidelity.
Yeah, we hear this.
Unbelievable. Okay. So it's generating the voiceovers. It's got, it'll pass in the details that it needs, as far as like the actual lines that it's trying to do the voiceover for. It'll spit out some wave files. And what you'll notice here is that now in our project folder, there should be an assets folder that gets created. And in that assets directory, you'll see there's an audio directory. And each line that it actually did the voiceover for, it saves it as its own independent wave file. Now that's important, right? Because remember we talked about like the fact that it's cool to do this for a one-time video, but where you really get the power is if you have to redo this multiple times. If it did one voiceover track where it just recorded audio start to finish, till the end, and then later on you wanted to add a different scene or maybe an animation takes just a little bit longer now, you'd have to re-record that entire voiceover. But the way it structures this, it records each line as its own wave file so that as you need to move stuff around, you have a lot of flexibility. You can just drop those different audios in, where you need them. All right. So let's see. Preview is still running. Auto load. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. All right. Good. So now we go back. You can already see here that it's got this other line here where we now have, there's the caption line. There is the voiceover line VO1, 2, and 3. And if we go to the start, I hope this doesn't blast out your speakers. I don't know about the volume thing, but let's just try it here.
The circle moves from left to right over 5 seconds. The circle holds its position for 2 seconds. The circle moves back to the left over 5 seconds.
Okay. So again, that very annoying TikTok type voice, but you get the idea, right? So it's actually pretty slick. Now, this is where you can start to, develop your own kind of guidelines, maybe your own preferences for how you want this to work. Like you notice that when we ran this, the voice here, because it only sat for 2 seconds, but saying that it sits for 2 seconds actually took just about that amount of time. It went right from that voice right into the next one with no kind of pause, right? So what we can do is maybe come into Claude and just say like, I think that VO2 and VO3 are running into each other. Can we add a little bit of time spacing between? Okay, so just something simple like that. And we'll let it, add those spacings. Now, what I was saying is, making this where you have kind of standards, just like any other kind of Claude work that you're doing, where, you go through a whole process, you give little bits of tweaks here and there. At the very end, you might want to do, create a skill and say, okay, based on all the work that we did today, let's create a Bill's video standards skill that takes everything that we discussed in my preferences and bakes it in so that next time I don't have to repeat it and you just have everything you need. So maybe one of my preferences is that there's always at least a 1.3 second gap between any kind of voiceover work, just so that they don't run into each other. So things like that you can bake into a skill. Now, just with that basic request, I can already see that it added the gap there, but let's just go to that section and we'll see if it sounds a little bit better.
For 2 seconds.
Okay, did it just not talk the third one? Did it break the...
The circle holds its position for 2 seconds.
Okay, so I don't actually hear the third one. And again, that goes back to no matter how many times you practice on this thing. So let's see. So now I don't hear the third VO. And always put at least 3 passive-aggressive question marks when you prompt your AI agents.
And there is a question. Can we
Yeah.
record our voice and AI use it instead of like a fake voice?
Yes. If we can take a quick aside for a potential Black Mirror episode, yes, you can absolutely go to 11 Labs. That's the one that I use to grab all the different voices. And I'll tell you what, while we're on the topic, why don't we just jump over there and I can show you this. So if you go to 11labs.io, you can see that
cleanliness is the key to a healthy.
Hold on. So there should be, okay. My controls were blocking it. Let's see if we can actually just log in here. So if you log into 11 Labs, and signing up is free, you don't have to actually have a subscription just to get an account to log in. You'll notice that there is a crazy amount of command prompt windows opening up, doing everything to block me clicking on the screen. But if you go to the Voices tab here in 11 Labs, they have hundreds, thousands, I don't know, of different voices that you can select from. And they have different categories for these, like conversational, narration, weird characters. So if you wanted to have your Salesforce support videos in a British accented, brooding, intense voice, you can choose this as your voice.
Destiny does not arrive by chance.
I mean, imagine just your account and contact walkthrough with a sultry or a legendary Spartan warrior voice.
Espartanos, hoy.
You know what I mean? So you get the idea. So it has all the baked in, like the recorded voices that you can choose from, but it actually has the ability in here. And now that I said it, I'm going to have to try to figure out where it is. But they do give you the ability to actually record your own voice.
I see create voice, like above the list.
Oh, there you go. Yep. So you can actually go through here and give it X number of minutes of your own voice, either just recording it directly or you give it videos where you were speaking, and it will come up with a voice that, for the most part, sounds just like you, that you can then use for your videos for the voiceover work. A couple steps you have to go through, if you're going to use any of the voices on 11 Labs. They have all the documentation there. Maybe this is something that we can go into the detail in another session, but basically all you need to do is authenticate 11 Labs through the API, and then Claude knows how to use that. It'll basically just, when it has the step where it's going to take the text and convert that into a voiceover, which I was trying to find real quick. But in any case, like where it actually takes the voice, instead of doing it locally with that local HyperFrames Kuroko voice, it'll actually send the text to 11 Labs. It gets, recorded, and then it gets sent back down. And the same thing, when you record it, you'll get those WAV files so that you could reuse them, when you need to do, re-edits at some point in the future. But yeah, you could do that, your own voice thing. It's kind of creepy a little bit. They even there's another site, I don't think it's through 11 Labs, but you can even train your own avatar. So if you're the kind of person that takes a half a day to record a 20-second video of you talking on camera with some kind of track, you can not only do the voiceover work with the voice, but you could actually create an avatar of yourself that looks pretty realistic. So you can just do that automated. Lots of stuff you can do. But, for the most part, if you just want to have, a local support video, you can use the built-in voices, or just, the ones on 11 Labs are pretty inexpensive. So, all right. So any questions there with just the very basic video that we put together here, and moving our circle back and forth, adding a captions line, and then doing the voiceover track?
We have like 2 or 3 questions. One of them is, can we use to auto post the video that we are generating on a scheduled manner? to our media such YouTube or LinkedIn?
I have no idea. I'm really not sure. So if I think about that workflow, like you would give it some content, have it create the video, and then automatically post it to YouTube. Is that what we're
It
thinking?
sounded like it, or it sounded like even schedule it like to generate the video like from the latest content or the latest
Oh,
changes you have in your project. But kind
okay.
of yes, we
I'm
got an
I'm going to give
answer
you
and that
this.
yes.
Yeah, I'm going to give you the short answer. I'm going to say yes. I think that's something that you could do. Um, it'd definitely be something that I'd want to like try to figure out the exact switches and everything that we'd have to flip to do that. But um, if I just think about like content that goes up onto a web page randomly, could I create a Claude agent that runs a couple times a day to go out to that site and see if anything new is created? Yes, I know that we can do that. Could I create it so that the rule is that if you find new content, automatically based on some rules that we create a video caption and a voiceover track, based on the content that you found, and automatically create a video. Yes, we know that we can do that. We just kind of walk through some of those steps here of the automatic creation of a video. And then is there a way to automatically post things on YouTube? Now, I've never done that through Claude, but I know that a lot of video editing software, they can all plug into the YouTube API and you can upload videos and stuff like that. So I have to imagine that somebody has figured out a way to make Claude talk to YouTube and automatically post the video. So I think we could do that. So yeah, I think you could easily create some kind of skill chain with Claude that could check a site on a regular basis, create a video if it finds new content, automatically upload it to YouTube, or send you a Slack message so that you can approve it and then automatically upload it to YouTube. Those are all things that I think that we could definitely do.
That's great. And another question or request, we have a request if we can in a later session record together our own voice and see how we can use it.
I am happy to have you record your own voice on a future session. Yeah. I started going down that path, but again, I just start to think like, do I really want to do that? I will say one thing though. A lot of people have said yes, they want to do that because if you go here to the Voices on 11 Labs, if you scroll down here, you'll notice that there's some like if you want your support videos to be narrated by Megatron, which I think every
Mhm.
company should do, and I would respect them more if they did that. You could do that, right? There's like all kinds of famous people and stuff that have gone down the path of recording their voices, or their states have allowed them to record their voices. So yeah, I mean, who doesn't want their product demos for the App Exchange to be recorded by the Hoff? You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
it's cool. So yeah, record your voice. Use David Hasselhoff or Bing Crosby, but yeah, I don't know. I just don't know if I want my voice on there, but yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you so much, Will. I think those are the questions we have for now.
Okay. Now, before we jump to the Salesforce example, one last thing that I wanted to try here, and again, haven't really tested this one, but let's just give it a whirl. We can say that we have our brand details in the, what did I call it? RH dash brand directory, dot, dot, dot. Can you use that as inspiration to update our colors and layout? Okay, so again, not giving it too much detail about what I wanted to do, but just pointing it at that resource hero brand directory and just say, use that as inspiration. And you can see here, it's checking like we have our color palette, all the different colors that we use within our brand. We have our logos. Let's see, we have different graphics that we use, in a lot of our stuff, our branded sparkles. Everybody should have their own branded sparkles. But yeah, you get the idea. It's got all the different stuff that we use within the Resource Hero brand. And let's just see if we take this again, very generic, basic video. Let's see what it does just by pointing it at our pre-existing, already created brand files. See what it comes up with here. All
That
right. So
would be,
again,
I think, useful, especially like when we are working with the support videos to use the company logo or even like the company look and feel. That will be useful when working with the videos for support projects too, right?
yeah, and keep in mind too, I know there's probably a lot of companies that have their branded website, but they don't have like a marketing team that's creating like a brand guide or anything like that. But they just have a website that's got like all their colors and their styles and their fonts and all that kind of stuff. So you don't necessarily even need to have like a brand folder. You could literally just say, go to resourceheroapp.com and use that as inspiration to create a brand guide for our support videos and have it created for you, right? Yeah, so basically anything where it's got color schemes and styles and vibes, for lack of a better term, just point it at it and have it created for you. But there you go. So now we have a rebranded. Let's see what a branded resource hero circle animation looks like. I don't know what that's going to be, but let's give it a whirl. Okay, so I guess the branded one just
Maybe you
doesn't
need to
work.
refresh the page.
Yeah, so I'm going to try here. Let's see.
Because I think when you said like we didn't hear the third voiceover, it said that it's a stale browser. Maybe and refresh it if I am not wrong.
So I think what you're saying is I should have just read and it said hard refresh the tab to see it. Okay. It is trying to hard refresh. Let's see. Try that again. Stop. Refresh. Okay, so it's stuck. So I'm just going to close that. We can close this too. Let's go back in here and just say, can you open the preview again? And again, remember, please. Always be polite. Right, so you can see it's running that command there. It's not running, so it's starting a fresh one, which is exactly what we wanted. It should open 47 command prompt windows, and then it should open up the preview.
And with all of that, we didn't yet create any MP4. It's all just
correct.
HTML.
Yeah, correct. Which we can do that in a second here.
Oh.
So there we go. So all my command prompt windows are flashing around. There we go. Right, just 27 more, and we should be good.
You mentioned you did something to correct this.
Apparently not. But
Okay.
yeah, well, apparently because they're closing themselves, so at least most of them are. I've had it where it was just keeping up like all of them. So I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with that. I didn't have that same issue when I was doing this on the Linux side, but yeah, I'll have to try to figure that out. But
the circle moves from left to right over.
Okay, you get the idea. So it changed the colors to the Resource Hero branded colors. And if I move, okay, I thought it would have added the logo. I thought that would have been a nice touch, but I guess not. But it at least updated the color scheme, which is kind of cool. Now, to get to your question about the MP4, we can actually say here, you see that we have a renders folder that gets created, but there's nothing in it right now. So we can say, this looks great. Let's render. And always put one more exclamation point than you're comfortable with. There we go. So it's going to go through. We can look at the commands here, but it's got that npx HyperFrames render. Again, everything that Claude is doing, in theory, you could just do by writing your own code and running your own commands. But again, with those skills, it just kind of knows all this stuff and can do it probably a lot faster than if I tried to do it manually. But it's all there. I mean, you could do this, through your own command, automations or whatever you want to build. So yeah, we have our normal wonderful pattern of command prompt windows.
And also, like, it's good that it's showing the commands. So if someone needs to know for sure what it's doing step by step, like they can even read through more or see documentation and explore what is happening exactly.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So it's going through. You can see it created looks like a temporary directory in there as it's going through doing the rendering. And depending on how many scenes you have and the length here, it might take, a couple of minutes for it to do the render, but generally speaking, it's pretty quick. And just keep in mind too, it's doing all the rendering on your local machine. It's not sending it off anywhere to do it. So depending on the, quality of your machine and processor speed and all that kind of stuff, that would make the rendering time vary. But you can see there it is. So it's got us our video.mp4, and I have no idea if I can run this through VS Code, but there we go. I think the video works, but the audio won't work through VS Code. But there you go. There's our rendered MP4 file. So good to go.
That's amazing. That's great.
All right. So that was our super basic. Let's just see how HyperFrames creates some files. And again, we can look here. It added a whole bunch of stuff as we added in our audio and our captions, and it didn't have to do any animation for those, but you can see that at least added them onto the screen, and it gave the times that they actually display on the screen and how long they should stay on the screen. So all that got added as we were interacting with Claude. So I think what we'll do, let's just close out this particular session on this simple example, and let's actually do a little bit more complicated example. So what I'm going to do, I don't think I already have it open. Oh, actually, I do. Okay, so this is my pre-existing org that was open that I lost my session to. So let's go back into VS Code. Let's open up our terminal here and just do sf org open. And because I have that set as my default org. I don't have to put the target org and all that stuff. It'll just pick up that this is my default org, and this should open up through the Salesforce CLI, that org in the browser. There you go. Okay, so let's just say, what would be a good example here? Let's just say that our users are struggling with how to create contacts within Salesforce. So we want to give them a support video that will show them step by step how to log into Salesforce, how to go to a particular account record, click on an account, go to the related tab, find the contacts related list, click new, fill out the form, and click save. Right. So we want to basically document those steps for the user so that they know how to do it. Or they can put that into their support, doc. So when they onboard a new employee, they know how to follow those steps to create a contact. So if we jump back into VS Code and we go to let's get rid of our terminal. Let's go back to our cheat sheet. And I think I have this pre-typed out because that would be a lot for me to say out loud. So let's close that. Let's open up a new Claude session. All right. And again, before I hit enter, let's just kind of review this. So basically, I'm asking Claude, I want to create support documentation for Salesforce users that walk them through how to create new contact on an account, open my default Salesforce org using the Playwright CLI. Again, that's where Playwright comes in. Capture screenshots of every step that takes them from the home screen to an account, to the related tab, new contact button, etc. Let's capture every change in state so that we can use these screenshots in a future support video or animation. Make up some test data for the contact, place all screenshots in the videos / create account contact assets directory, create it if you need to, and make sure not to capture any kind of tooltips or other pop-ups. I threw that last line on there because sometimes Claude will like linger over the JavaScript button and it's got like a weird pop-up that comes up, and we don't want those to be part of our screenshots. So we just, make that a point. And when it goes to validate all the screenshots, it should catch those things and recapture them if needed. All right. So this may take a moment, but let's actually go up here. We can close all of our simple circle video stuff, and we'll see when it creates our new folder for these screenshots. But it should do all this. Now, what you'll notice is that it's going to start talking about the Playwright CLI. It's going to talk about opening up the default org, and it's going to even talk about capturing screenshots, but we're not going to see any of it. If you actually wanted to follow along, like let it open up a browser so you can see what it's doing, you can absolutely do that. You just need to tell Claude to use a headed session. So headed as in HEDED. So if you tell it use a headed session, that's Playwright CLI speak for open up the browser where we can actually see the thing. But otherwise, everything else will work exactly the same. But for this purpose, we'll just let it kind of go on its own, and we'll see what happens here. Now, I do see, there you go. So we got a create account contact folder got created. The assets folder got created. And as it starts creating its screenshots, they should start popping in there. All right. So it looks like it grabbed the home screen. There we go. Nice screenshot of the home page. And then if we go back to here, you'll see it kind of talking to itself about like, okay, so now I need to find the accounts tab, and it'll look for the accounts tab, and then it'll click on the accounts tab, and it'll, again, start just capturing screenshots as it goes. There it goes. I found the account, sees the list.
And Bill, can we tell it like to highlight where it will be clicking? Because like if you're recording a screen like yourself, you can choose this where like the mouse show, or like a bright circle shows where you are clicking. But if we are just taking screenshots, can we do that as well?
Yeah, we absolutely can. But when we think about like the steps that we're going to take before we can highlight anything, or before we tell it to highlight anything, we just want to capture just a base screenshot. Because if you said capture a screenshot and then highlight the thing that we're clicking on, if it does it wrong, then you might have to recapture the screenshot and apply like something, so we get the raw screenshots first. And then as we create the video, we're going to tell it how to do the highlighting and move mouse pointers around and all that stuff, which we're going to get to in a couple of seconds here.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's going to, let's see what other screenshots. So it looks like it got our account list. It clicked on Burlington, clicked on Burlington's related tab. It's showing the contacts now. I'm guessing the next one is going to be the new screen that pops up. So an empty modal, which it did. It should start filling in the details. And we told it every state change. So I hope that is enough for it to know that as it's filling in each field, it should be capturing a screenshot for those. So let's see what it's doing here. And again, you might not even use those. Like if you had it, if I go back to this screenshot here, maybe you just wanted to go from an empty form to a fully filled in filled in form. That's cool. But if you let it capture, like where it puts in the first name, it captures a screenshot, put in the last name, captures a screenshot. It's kind of cool because later it'll give you more flexibility. Like if you did want to animate those things or have the mouse move to each field that they have to fill in. So let's see what it's actually doing. So it looks like it got first name, last name. This has title, mobile, fax, email. There's the completed form. And then I'm assuming it's going to have a save and it'll show like the fact that it actually saved. But yeah, I mean, again, just with a single prompt, I think it's doing a pretty good job here.
And all
And
of
again,
that is Playwright. We didn't touch HyperFrame yet.
we're not touching HyperFrames at all yet. This is just Playwright, opening a browser, navigating to our standard Salesforce org, and capturing the screenshots. That's all being managed by Playwright.
Okay, amazing.
Okay, so it created that. Maybe it created a duplicate, or maybe I think it was creating Jordan actually. Okay, and if I'm going to click on Jordan, if I had to guess, yeah, this one I guess it just scrolled down a little bit. Okay. So then it did. Yep, clicked on Jordan, and I think it'll declare success after that. Okay, captured 12 screenshots documenting the full, and it gives you the nice accounting of everything. And I thought it would have created a contact sheet for us, but it didn't. That's okay. Again, contact sheet's kind of nice because it'll put all the images on one screen where you can kind of review them on like just one big image. But otherwise, if it doesn't do that, you just got to kind of click through them. But again, personal preferences, that might be part of the skill that you create that says every time we create screenshots, create a final contact sheet that we can look through and see them all in one place. But okay, so yeah, let's just say this looks great. Now, using the lessons learned in the simple circle video, let's create a HyperFrames video showing the process. Include captions. Okay, so again, we just have a folder of screenshots. We'll give it a general prompt to use what we did for the simple circle and create a support video. Now, again, non-declarative AI stuff. The hope would be that after it goes through and does all this, that we have a support video that includes screenshots from every step with captions at the bottom explaining what we're doing in each step with a voiceover explaining it as we go. So that's the theory of what this is going to put together now.
And we can do the clicks too, if you don't mind, Bill, at some point.
Yeah, we'll do the clicks and the highlighting, but we'll let it go with the basics here, and then we'll refine from there.
Okay.
Yeah, the nice thing too, doing the screenshot approach is, if you animate, like if you instead of recording a video, where like, have you ever recorded a video for support and you're like very conscious of where your mouse is and how quickly you're moving the mouse to try to make it look nice and pretty as like it glides across the screen? This, you don't have to worry about that. You capture the screenshot and you can animate the pointer in later and actually show the clicks and all that kind of stuff. But real quick, before we get to any open questions, let's just say, should each caption also have a spoken voiceover line? Of course it should. How should we review this before rendering the final video? We can ask it to do a storyboard, or we can do a one-shot build. If this is really big and it was kind of a complex process, I would suggest doing the storyboard, but who has time for such a thing? So we'll do a one-shot build. Then what aspect ratio? We want to go with whatever we captured it in, which was 1920. But keep that in mind if you're creating a video that's going to go on LinkedIn or some platform that has a unique kind of requirement for resolution. Tell it that to begin with, so that when it captures the screenshots, it'll capture them in the appropriate resolution, and then the underlying video that it creates will be perfectly designed for that resolution as well. Yeah, we'll let it go. Any questions while we're letting Claude?
Yeah, we have a question. What is a storyboard like when you got the option?
Yeah, great question. Let's see. I don't think that we actually created one in our first one. Okay, so a storyboard. So let's actually think through the process like I would take creating a video for Resource Hero, right? So I mentioned that I go to the website, WordPress site, I create the support documentation, and then my prompt to Claude is go to that website and use that as inspiration to create a storyboard. And what it's going to do, it's actually going to create a markdown version of or like a markdown file that includes all the details about what is going to be contained within each scene. So it'll say like scene one, on the screen, we're going to see this screenshot, and then it'll have the voiceover for scene one. Like we're going to say this, and this. And basically, so it'll just take every scene that's going to be in the video, break it down for each section, telling you what's on the screen, what animations are going to happen, what voiceovers are going to happen. And it just does that in text format, again, in a markdown file. So you can skim through that, make sure that it's on the right track, make any kind of corrections you have to do. Again, all in text, which is very quick for it to put that storyboard together so that you can make adjustments before you sit here staring at your screen, letting Claude go through 10 minutes of, creating a video that in the end you're like, why did you do that in scene two? That's not what we wanted. Now make the change. You got to wait another 10 minutes. So storyboard just lets it create kind of the high level scene structure in text so you can make adjustments, talk about the voiceover track, all that stuff before it actually spends any effort in actually creating the video itself.
That's amazing. And another question we got, like when you refer that you open your support page, what is the support page and what does it contain? Like,
yeah, good question. So let me give you an example. So if we go to resourceheroapp.com. So if I were to go to our website, go to support, and maybe look for something like find resource. So we have a component called the find resources component. So this would be the example.
Bill, you're mute, yeah.
Down. But you get the idea. So this is basically just a regular support video that talks about a UI that we have within our app, talks about how each section of it works, what each field means and what you're entering in there. What happens when you click save? What are the the details about every little piece of text that are in there? What are the nuances of the interface? So basically, just all that detail that you would have in a normal support doc. So that's what I would point Claude to kind of come up with. Like if I told it I want to create a user-focused support video about this component, it'll go through here, kind of scrape through all this stuff that's user specific. Or I might say, look at the same exact website, but I want you to focus from an administrator perspective. And it might, grab stuff like how do you add the component onto a Lightning app builder page and things like that. So yeah, it's just a nice way for it to kind of go through and do the first pass to create those storyboards, and then you can kind of tweak it from there. But knowing that I always have to do the documentation anyway, that's usually where I start, and then I just let everything else be based off of that support post. And the other thing that's nice too, creating the support documentation where you say like it's on this tab or click on this button and go to this place or whatever it is, that's also something that can inform Claude for using Playwright to go out and capture the screenshots. So we have like a demo org, a Salesforce org that has our product installed, has all the test data that we need. That's kind of like our screenshot org. So whenever we have a feature that we need to create a video for, it opens up that org and it kind of just captures all the screens based off of the storyboard that we put together. So we don't have to tell it like what screens to capture. It'll just do it based off of what it finds on the support post and what we have in our storyboard.
So we can think about it as a documentation on what we need to include or how our video should look like, the main points that we want to cover or structure.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly that. Think about it like any other kind of storyboard that you would do, like, 20 years ago when they're creating a movie, like before they spent all the money of hiring and, having actors on scene and having film and cameras and all that kind of stuff, they would just sit down with a paper and a pencil and just kind of sketch out what they want the actual scenes to look like. It's just like that, just in text format.
Amazing. And we have another question. Can we do the same with the Experience Cloud portal?
There is no restriction on what you can use this for. If it opens up in a browser, Playwright can open it.
That's great. And we have a question, and I think we kind of answer it, but you let me know. There is a question. If I have my product screenshots, how can I use HyperFrame to create same video? And that came after we finished the circle before this one. And is it better than Claude Design? So I think the screenshot is kind of what we are doing. But the part that I don't know the answer for, is it better than Claude Design? I don't know if Claude Design can do videos. I didn't.
Yeah, I don't know. But what I'll say is that whatever tool that you're using to create a support video. You remember I mentioned that, occasionally we might adjust the look and feel of buttons, or we might like the layout might change a little bit. So the overall structure of a support video would be exactly the same. I just want to make sure that it gets created with the new screenshots that contain the new, images that we have, with the new design. So the nice thing about creating videos with HyperFrames, everything again is baked into this index.html file. So as far as like where things are positioned on the screen, when they show up on the screen, how long they stay on the screen, where do they move, all that stuff is baked into code exactly, right? So if I ran this with a set of assets, a set of screenshots, for the first time, it'll create a support video of, let's just say, for example, exactly 27.5 seconds, and it has specific beats. Now later, I have Claude go and re-record my screenshots because again, styling changed. I want to do dark mode or something, whatever it is. And now I wanted to recreate the support video. I know that when I re-render this, just with the updated screenshots, that it is going to be the exact same beat by beat video that I created the first time, just with updated screenshots. Every time, like if I rendered this 15 times, it'll create the exact same video 15 times in a row, right? Versus me going through some tool and screen recording and moving the mouse around and all that kind of stuff. Once you have that index.html file, whenever you render this video, it's going to be the exact same video based on what's contained here. So again, I'm not too familiar with a lot of the other like screen capturing tools or the video creation tools, but I just know that when you do this, because everything is baked in there, all the instructions are baked into that file as code. It is deterministic. It will create the same video every single time. So I don't know if that answers the question, but Claude Design. I think Claude Design is more of you're defining what your brand guidelines are and styles and color schemes and all that kind of stuff. So that you could pull into here and use as your brand. But for creation of the video, I think that's still HyperFrames or some other kind of tool like that. Okay, so
We
yeah,
have other questions if you have time.
sure.
So, is it someone is wondering if you can share the prompts used so they can reuse it when they are testing offline? Maybe if you can add them to GitHub.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll make sure that file, my cheat sheet file that I had here, will include that as well. Yep.
Okay, that's great.
Okay.
And yeah,
Just real quick as an update, it looks like it's almost finished. It's relinting things, so I think that we might be getting to towards the end here. But yeah, good.
that's great. That's great. And I can't wait for the at least the highlighting as well, or like the clicking if we can, or if you have time.
Yeah, yeah, we'll definitely do that before we close out here.
Thank you. Okay, and I think you answered this question when you said the benefit of using HyperFrame, but like someone is asking like, can you use it to update your old video to update like whenever Salesforce change a product name, so you can regenerate it with the new name? I guess the answer would
Yeah,
be yes.
yeah. So imagine we created this support video, or actually let's use the one that's already finished while that one's still going. Let's just say that this was our Salesforce support video that went out, and the assets had all the different screenshots and everything that it captured from the website. Like we got a bunch of screen grabs and everything else, and then we created this index.html file that had exactly the scenes, how long stuff stays. So you come back in 2 months, Salesforce has just changed Pardot to be Salesforce account engagement for whatever reason they renamed that. And you're like, oh, that's great. I just had this big support video that references Pardot in all the different places. So what you would do is you would come into this video folder, open up a Claude session, and say Salesforce, comma, for whatever reason, comma, renamed Pardot to Salesforce account engagement.
Mhm.
Can you recapture all the screens and re-render this video? That's all that you would have to do. Claude would use Playwright, open up Salesforce, grab all the screenshots that it needs with the same file name. So basically, it's going to recapture with the same file names for each one of them, and then it would just re-render the video. So again, none of this would change. The video structure, the beats, the timings, all that kind of stuff stays exactly the same. The only thing that's different now is the screenshots that it's pointing to. So you will have the exact same video at the end, just with updated screenshots that contain the new naming conventions. And the other thing too is if you say rename from Pardot to account engagement, if your captions reference that, if your voiceovers, mention Pardot, those would all be recreated as well. Now, that's where maybe some of the nuance comes in. So if you created a video that was precisely 30 seconds that used the word Pardot 5 times, right? And now you have to have it say, instead of Pardot, Salesforce account engagement, yeah, Salesforce Marketing Cloud account engagement, whatever that nonsense is. Because now it went from a very short Pardot to that very long name, it might have to re-record that audio. So now the audio might be a little bit longer. So it might take each scene and extend it a little bit so that it can account for those voiceovers. But all that would be automated. Yeah, I mean, it would be the exact same video, just maybe a little bit extended to take into account those name changes.
That's amazing.
Okay, let's see where we're at. Composition looks clean. Let's render the final video. Okay, so it went right to the rendering, which is cool. I guess it skipped the preview. We'll let it finish the render, and then I'll actually run the preview directly and see what this looks like. And then, like I said, we can add the pointer and the highlights and things like that. But let's just see what it comes up with here.
And we got a request as well, Bill, if we can in the future work with Playwright more and see how we can do end-to-end testing and regression testing, and like if we can use it to review a PR or like track issues we have for the testing in Jira tickets.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. So let's see. Please open the preview. Okay. Yeah, that is definitely one, again, that I use pretty heavily on the Resource Hero side. Again, we have, I don't know, just call it 5 or 6 different interfaces, and interface being like a UI interface. And a lot of this stuff, like testing functionality, we do via Apex testing, but there's some stuff, that even just testing wouldn't test, completely. So there's quite a few tests where we actually have Playwright driving the browser, opening up Salesforce, going to our interfaces, entering data within the interface, clicking on all of our buttons, verifying this stuff works, using that in conjunction with the Salesforce CLI to query data and verify that data that got entered to the UI and submitted to the Salesforce server actually saved correctly and came back down as the appropriate data records. But yeah, that could definitely be a dedicated session that we do. Okay, so while we wait for the 300 command prompt windows to open up this time, let's actually see. Okay, so almost there, maybe. Yeah, it seems like for every component that's on the screen, it's going to open up a command prompt window. Again, I have absolutely no idea why it does that, but I'll sort it out eventually. Just I didn't have enough time to sort it out prior to this. Okay,
And
so
while this is ending, like someone is asking how Playwright CLI configured to authenticate with Salesforce, like how it authenticated the org or where
yeah, so there is a Salesforce CLI command, which essentially when you run it, it gives you a one-time use where you paste it into the browser and it'll just authenticate into the org. So it creates like a one-time only way to authenticate. So for Playwright doesn't do anything magical. It's just that Claude knows that we're logging into the default Salesforce org. It runs that Salesforce CLI command to get the URL that it needs to log in, and that's the URL that it opens up in Playwright. So Playwright doesn't do anything. It just opens up the URL that Claude tells it to, and that URL is the one that it created through the Salesforce CLI. All right, so let's just see this real quick.
Start on the Salesforce home screen. Open the Accounts tab to see your accounts. Click into an account to open its detail page. Select the related tab to see connected records. Find the contacts related list and click New.
Okay, so you get the idea. So I think it did a pretty good job so far, right? So let's actually just go back here. This is find the contacts related list and click New. So let's do this. So I want to make sure that we have a mouse pointer, which is directing the user's focus. And we should highlight sections some way so they know what we are speaking about.
Do you want to say don't render and just create the preview?
Nope. Click nation. Don't render. Let's make these changes, then preview. And actually what I'm going to do is take a quick screenshot here. Actually, you know what? I don't need to do a screenshot. Step 5. For now, let's focus only on steps 4 and 5. Again, just for time, we'll have it focus on just those 2 steps.
Yeah.
But
But
again,
if it
you
does
notice
it,
that,
I can't believe, like, I can't believe this will be done for us, to be honest.
yeah, and notice that when we prompted this, we didn't give it any details like the size of the mouse pointer. Do we want it to be a hand or a cursor? When we highlight a section, do we want it to be a glowing orange, box, or do we want it to dim the screen and only show like the section we're talking about in the bright, screen? But these are all the kind of things that you could, as you're iterating with Claude and like take a single screenshot and then just start iterating like, okay, highlight that section. Okay, that highlight was good, but add an orange box around it, when you do the highlight. You know what I mean? So like start building out what you want your highlight to look like, what a mouse cursor looks like. What should happen when you simulate a click? Like, does it just put the mouse there and you hear a click noise, or do you want it to show like a clicking animation or something? But do all that, save it as part of your brand or your style or the skill that you create. And then every support video that you create after that, you could just reuse those same exact guidelines. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time.
And for any sound effects, like we have to find a library or something, or it has some sound effects in the HyperFrame.
I don't think HyperFrames comes with sound effects. I don't know. It might.
Mhm.
But I think all the sound effects that I've used, I think I got through 11 Labs. And again, for a couple dollar subscription per month, or even just the basic credits, I mean, you can get all kinds of voices, and I've never run out of credits based on just like the $10 that I paid for. But yeah, sound effects. So if you want to grab like a click sound effect, you can do so.
Interesting. That's nice.
Get started. Okay, there. So mouse click.
Hmm.
You got to use that heavy click noise when I animate stuff for like my parents for their computer. All right, so it's still going. Yeah, voiceovers. Oh, the other thing too, if you really want to make your videos dramatic too, the other thing from 11 Labs you can take a look at would be music beds. So, and it's smart enough to like align screen movement and whatnot to the beats of the song, all that kind of stuff. So that's something else to make your support videos more dramatic.
And can you add like an intro music and exit music for the
Mhm.
video, I would assume too?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it has all the skills baked in the HyperFrames that it knows how to do like a lead in, where it kind of ramps the music up, makes it quiet while it's doing the voiceovers, and then in the final, like it'll do a crescendo kind of thing. All that is baked into the skills there.
That's impressive.
Yeah. All right. So again, we'll hopefully this won't be too much longer. So it's linting, so it looks like it added everything, and now it's just doing its checks to make sure that it did it correctly. One thing to kind of watch out for when you do the highlights, or where you tell it where to click, it does a really good job, but sometimes it might be like off a little bit. So you have a couple different ways you can handle that. You could tell it, hey, it looks like you missed the save button. Go back and do it again, and it'll do like a more focused job of figuring out exactly where it needs to click. Sometimes it happens, and you can just tell it that. The other thing that I've done is in your skill that you create, you can give it instructions like, okay, when I give you a screenshot and we're talking about animation, when I put a like an orange box around something, that indicates that I want you to zoom in that location. If I put a red X over something, that's where I want you to click the mouse pointer. You know what I mean? So like you could start like marking up screenshots so that it knows precisely where you want it to do certain things like zooms or clicks or drags or panning and things like that. So you don't necessarily have to describe it just by text, by typing into a prompt. You can mark them up and do it visually.
Interesting.
Yeah. Imagine a world where you have a screenshot, you open it up into Microsoft Paint, you draw all those arrows, and for each drawing you put like the boxes and the arrows, you actually number them. So like zoom in, and so you have like you put a square around something, you put the number one, you draw an arrow then, and then you put a number two next to the arrow, and then so on. And then you give Claude that screenshot, and it already has your instructions. It knows what a box is, it knows what an X is, it knows what a green box is, all these things. So the animation, you basically just described all the steps you wanted to take on that screen just by putting some arrows and boxes and things like that. So again, depending on how often you use these, you can kind of come up with all kinds of ways to streamline the process. You don't have to always tell it exactly what you want it to do.
That I don't know, like it's impressive, and at the same time if we get the know-how how to do it, like in practice, like based on what you taught us today, I feel like we can have like endless options of what we can produce or generate as well. Like, I feel it's a bit scary word, like where will we have ever jobs in the future? Because
Yeah, it is. It is definitely scary.
because in the
Um,
past, like I think there was only people doing this. Like you give them like requirements or a video and they edit or screenshots and they will animate it for you. Like if like AI and tools now is doing it and do it like perfectly fine, like those like jobs, their nature changed or they don't exist anymore.
yeah, and I guess this is one of those where you feel kind of bad, but then at the same time, like I think Salesforce as a Salesforce partner, they had a co-marketing program where they would create a 1 minute product, co-branded product animation video. And I think they were charging something like, I don't know, $5,000 or $7,500 for that, where it would like have the voiceover track, have the sound, like the music bed in the background, click on the different screens and zoom and pan and all that kind of stuff. And I'm thinking now with a $200 or $100 a month Claude subscription with free HyperFrames plugin, that exact same video could be done in an hour. You know what I mean? That was like $7,000 that somebody was charging to do that. And now it can just be recreated. So as a, relatively small company, it's very, very nice for somebody like me, but I also understand that there will be some displacement for those types of jobs.
Yeah.
But imagine that design person that had all those skills to do it manually. Imagine what they could do now with
Mm.
this tool in their hands, taking it to a different level. So,
Definitely, definitely. But it's the question now if new designers will learn the skills that the old designer know. Like,
it's just fill in the blank designer, developer, software
yeah,
engineer,
it's the
you
same.
know.
And,
Okay,
and
so it
and Bill,
looks
are you good to continue or like you need to drop
I
in?
am. If you need to end it, we can end it, but I'm good to stay on for a few more minutes if
I'm good to stay myself. I just wanted to double check, so I'm not like disturbing your schedule by any means. I know we went over time, so thank you so much for staying with us.
yeah, I had back-to-backs today, but I think one of my meetings got canceled, so I'm good. Yeah.
We are lucky.
It worked out well. Okay, so let's see. It's doing all of this verification, taking all of the screenshots. Let's just see what
And for
and
the
you can see it.
verifications, like, does it create every time new screens and delete the old ones, kind of?
I believe it does, yeah. So
Hmm.
like you can see in the snapshots here, you can see that it had the mouse pointer and where it's moving and stuff like that. But let's see. See it's moving around. You can see it highlighted the button, which it did
Mm,
a really good job of outlining that button. Okay. Let's
that's
see. Are we
interesting.
done? No. Just take a look at the preview. Maybe the preview is done and it's just doing all of its checks now. Of course, I won't be able to get to it with the 4,000 command prompt pop-ups.
But I always feel like we are close to have it done when we have those pop-ups. So
Agreed.
that means we are almost.
Yeah, the self congratulations here. I love it. This looks great. Right.
Yeah, it found a bug earlier. It said a bug and it was solving it. So it seems like something didn't work as expected. And do you find this is something like we can think of like having agents run and do it for us, like whenever we have a new feature added or change happen, like we rely on sub agents or
Um, I'm sure like if you built this out where you wanted to, maybe offload some of the key steps to subagents, I could definitely see that being part of the skill, like your framework
mm,
that you set up. So for me, like opening up the Salesforce org, capturing all the screenshots, validating that the screenshots look okay, that would be a good example of where I might want to use a subagent because it'll do all that screenshotting and image analysis and everything else in its own context window. And then it would hand it back to the main session and then it would start building the video, things like that. So yeah, subagents, they could definitely fit in here depending on the scenario.
the use case. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So it looks like it opened up the preview, which is kind. I'm going to close this one. It's opening up all the things.
We are close.
We are very close.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. We are about to see the magic happen.
Who needs to wire in custom notifications when you can just have 480 command prompt windows? Stop everything that you're trying to do on your computer.
I'm curious to try it, like using a Mac, like you said, in Linux, you didn't have it.
No,
I'm curious to see when I try it on Mac if I will get those notifications too or not.
I'm thinking that it might be just Claude or HyperFrame's way of just reminding me why I don't use Windows. But like in that case, it's doing me a service by popping these all up. But I don't know.
Very
All right,
good.
looks like it's done. Let's see.
Start on the Salesforce home
So when we get to
screen.
step 4 or 5, I think is
Open
what
the
we said.
Accounts tab to see your accounts. Click into an account to open its detail page. Select the related tab
Oh,
to see
missed,
connected records. Find the contacts related list
missed.
and click New. A blank new contact form opens.
Okay, so you get the idea there. It added the highlighting, which I think did a really good job. The mouse clicks, though, completely missed the mark. And this
Yeah.
is where, I would go back in the Claude and tell it, like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, buddy, you missed the mark on the clicks. So,
Yeah, and we can add like that the highlight was good, but the marks for the clicks is wrong, so it helps.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, so I think that's a pretty good, just high level overview of the power of combining Claude with Playwright to capture screenshots, and then using HyperFrames to be able to build the videos. And again, you can see it's not perfect. There's things that you'll have to nudge one way or another. But once you go through all that back and forth, the final step after that first video that you create should be capture every lesson learned that we have here into a my custom video generation skill so that you don't have to kind of repeat yourself every time you create a video. Um, and then just the final thing I did mention about my process, and again, this is how I kind of do things where, I use Playwright to log into the Salesforce Word, capture a bunch of screenshots. Those screenshots then get updated on the support article, so the website on resourcehero.com. And then that support article with the screenshots feeds into my storyboard and the voiceover script, which I get approved. And then once that's approved, I hand it over to HyperFrames, which could take some time to do, as we saw here, where we're waiting for it to do it, but pass off the HyperFrames and then, go work on something else while it's doing it. And then eventually I come back. And in my case, I have it build me 2 videos, one for YouTube with that appropriate resolution, and then I have a rule for a LinkedIn video, which is supposed to be like not as long, short, very fast, fast beats, that kind of thing, where if somebody's scrolling, they would see that there and they might get the gist of it just by looking at the screen. So yeah, that's everything. And then the final thing as far as enhancements that I'll mention would just be obviously the cheap, free Kokoro voice. It gets the job done, but if you want something that sounds a little bit better, more human, more realistic, definitely look at something like 11 Labs. And again, that would be for voices, music, uh, sound effects, things like that. We already mentioned the brand folder. So again, you don't want to have to keep repeating yourself like, this font, this logo, all that kind of stuff. Creating just a standalone brand folder that you can point your video production to, you can point your Pardot automations to, where you're creating email templates and stuff. Just having one consistent brand across all the things you're creating, that has definitely saved me a significant amount of time. I already mentioned about your personal preferences, like, how long do you want your videos to shoot for? Where do you want to put your captions? Where should the logo live? What type of highlights do you want to use? All that kind of stuff. Baking that all into your own skill is definitely something you want to do. And yeah, I think pretty much everything else that we covered here. But yeah, I think here's some resources, and again, I'll share this as part of after the call, just so you have all the different URLs and whatnot. But other than that, I think that's everything I wanted to share for this particular session. So, any final before we part ways here?
No, we covered all the questions. I think the request we got is if we can share the prompts. So I mentioned that we'll have them in the GitHub repo for everyone. But I can't thank you enough, Bill. I know we went over time, and you were very generous to stay with us and show us like all the highlight and the mouse click and how it would look like and what we should say, even though like we saw like the point click didn't like align, but it's an easy fix. We have to go back and talk to Claude and it will get fixed. But with that, like I have to thank you so much, and I can't wait for the next session because every session we spend it with you, we learn a lot, and always there is something I have to test, and I have to rewatch the video myself and go through it and do it step by step because A lot of things are new, and we are grateful for your time and for everything. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And my parting advice, just for homework coming out of the session, like I said, just try these things out. Try to pick a very simple, basic example again, because the rendering takes a long time sometimes, or the thinking takes a long time. So pick a basic example, start asking Claude to do things just to see what it can do. And yeah.
And I would love to see the videos. So if anyone like found the session is useful and they learned something new, you can post the video like after you generated and tested as a homework and mention Bill, myself, and Code with Sally. Would love to see what you created and how the session helps you, like even on a personal time, your personal time, like generate or create something. Would love to see the creativity and what you could have achieved.
And extra credit if you use a heavy metal music bed in your video. So
Yeah, and thank you so much, Bill. And I'll keep you posted if we get any further questions offline, or if someone has like further follow-up they wish to cover, like so we take it into consideration for next session as well. But thank you so much, and I can't wait for the next session for our Claude and Claude Code series and learn from you.
all right, sounds good.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
all.